Today we're going to go over one of the easiest ways to get your bass working great alongside your guitars, your IR choice. When it comes to mixing any amped instrument like bass and electric guitar, one of the most important elements in the selection of your gear is your speaker choice or the impulse response. This is because the speaker itself acts like an EQ curve and it shapes the amp tone into something more pleasing to the ear and ultimately what we know is the sound of bass guitar on most records. Now, don't get me wrong, some people choose to opt for a direct signal, whether that's a DI input or just coming out of the XLR input on their amp head, and ultimately they skip the impulse response option on the bass. I've always had struggles with getting that to work in the mix, and I found it doesn't really glue the same way, especially in the top end of the bass where it needs to mix well with the guitars. Finding the right speaker option, like most things in music, just comes down to trying your various options across the source material until it works. Now, for the bass tone in this video, I wanted to choose something I know a lot of you guys have, so I just pulled up Parallax on a bass DI and use this A-Feared preset. Now, my one gripe with IRs and most bass plugins is that they always feel a little too safe, if that makes sense. They tend to not leave a lot of room for individuality and trying to get a unique bass tone, which isn't always a terrible thing. Sometimes it's, best to stick with what works. But in a lot of cases, I tend to have to do a lot of EQ in places where I feel like different mic choices and different speaker options would have made the difference for me. And this is no hate to Parallax, but for example, the mic options on here when flipping through them just don't really give me a lot of different options. A lot of these feel like variations of a theme rather than something new, which is why when we were making the cabs for Seismic, our bass plugin, it was like we need a lot of mics, we need multiple cabinets just to make sure we had the variety of sound that we felt was needed in the space. Now in this video, I'm going to be using a brand new IR pack that we just put together for bass guitar that just came out for Black Friday. If you want to check that out, you can grab it below, but you can use any of the bass IRs that you have access to try this out yourself. So as you can tell, flipping through those, we have a lot of sound variety, and that just comes down to different mic options and different speaker options that were used when capturing. For us, it was really just having those options, and as you can tell, it really paid off in being able to have so many different variations on the sound. When it comes to choosing the IR you're going to use, I always advise not to pay too much attention to what it sounds like in solo, because what we're going for here, especially with bass guitar, is a supporting element to the rest of the mix. We don't need the bass guitar to sound as cool or as exciting as the guitars, because the guitars are already playing that role in the mix. We really just want to make sure that when they're played together, that the bass sounds like it's supporting the guitars, and we want to make sure that the bass is not sticking out too much in the guitar's high end. This is a super easy mistake that I see made a lot, and it really makes the bass guitar sound like it's rattling off in the distance, and it really takes away from the power of the guitars. So now let's listen to some guitars with the bass behind it, and we'll flip through some IRs and see where we find what we like. The big things we're going to want to listen to are how the bass is sitting with the guitars and how the low end and high end feels in comparison to those guitars. And once you know what to listen for, it makes picking the IR super quick. As you can tell, we only had to take a couple seconds to flip through and really see which one was gelling best with the guitars, and that'll be the end of that decision. From then on out, it's just any basic EQ move you want to make, some compression, EQ, and you should be done with the mix. And that's really all you need to get started with using impulse responses for your bass tones. Be sure to check out the brand new bass IR pack that we dropped for Black Friday. I really hope it helps. And of course, if you have any questions on the process, leave them down below. And if you want to check out another video on bass tone, you could check out this one where Johnny goes over 4 EQ frequencies that you need to master for metal bass tones. Thanks for watching and happy music making.